Hello, and welcome to episode 69 of TBR, the To Be Read podcast, where we talk about the books we love and the topics that interest us. My name is Patrick Stemp, and as always, I have Jamie Maltman and Michael Ronn here with me. How are you guys doing?
Great, Patrick. How's it going?
Good. So tonight we're going to be talking about sort of the flip side of a discussion we had a couple weeks ago when we talked about haters going to rate and bad reviews. Tonight we're going to talk about useful reviews and what we look for in good reviews. And as usual, we will start with our weekly roundtable. And Jamie, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I've been.
Maltman and Michael Ronn here with me. How are you guys?
Good. In the background there.
Good. I think that was Michael feeding back.
Okay, you got that. All right.
Yeah, YouTube has this thing now where it won't let you mute your channels until the video starts.
Right. So if you don't catch it in time.
Way to go, Google. Anyway, go ahead, Jamie.
That's what you get for trying to watch for comments. But no, so what we finished off, my son and I finished off the Bone, so book one of that series. So that was the Quest for the Spark, set in the Bone World by Tom Snagosky, and it was a nice unit as like the first book, and then there's definitely a much bigger story. So I actually have no idea how many books it's going to go, but I should request that in at the library because that would let me avoid some of these other books that we've been coming across, which is, my son's really into Minecraft, and so we got out this book called Trouble in Zombie Town by Mark Cheverton or something like that. It's a second series that he's done about this Game Night 999 character. It's like a human that gets sucked into a Minecraft world, and there's all sorts of stuff going on with that. And it was kind of, I don't know, that first paragraph was painful to read through, like first few pages, and I'm sitting here going, okay, say you don't like this, say you don't like this, say you don't like this when I'm reading it to my son. And it's I don't know, it's kind of just like overdone.
Is it licensed, though, or not? Because there's a ton of unlicensed Minecraft children's stuff out there.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
It's short, it's text-heavy, there's not a lot of pictures, and it's, from what I've seen, they're not very good.
Yeah, this is like juvenile novel, so the kind of novels you'd have on the Carols at the library. So not the full YA stuff, but the lower than that. But no pictures. And this one I've seen selling at grocery stores and stuff. So it's a normally published one. It's not some something else that's like really just sort of fan fiction bundled up in some way just to get into the Minecraft credits. There's so many Minecraft books. There's a lot of great how-to type books out there, and they've been really helpful for us, supporting him and figuring out how to do everything, or supporting them because both sons do it. But this one I'm not so impressed with. And then it got we got to the end of the request, the 3 weeks, and someone else had. There were two holds on it, I think. So it's like, oh, sorry, we're only 3 chapters in. We got to take it back. So that went back to the library today, and I might never see it again.
Yeah, but unless they ask you to buy it for them, and then it'll be in the house.
Like, it's at the library. We're not buying. It's for that one. I'm not paying for that. But and then I have been continuing to read Feast for Crows. So again, that's book 4 of A Song of Ice and Fire. I think I'm on page 750-ish, somewhere in that range now. This one's been an interesting one because it's been a less intense. So I think story. I think that's what a lot of people probably felt like. This one was a bit of a letdown after the book. The third book was really intense. This one's had a lot of sort of background stuff and sort of filling in around the edges of different stories without really coming to a head. And like the other book had really started to come to a head by 2/3, 3/4 of the way through. But I'm still enjoying the world, but just less intensity. But I've heard the next one will be really good, so I'll have to go out and buy that.
That's book 4?
Book 4. Yeah, I'll have to go buy book 5 because my
if there's like 7 books, if there's 7 books, then you're like you're in like the very, very long middle, right?
Well, I don't know how many books there's going to be, but there's like the 5th book is out already. The 6th book is the one everyone's waiting for, I think, if I have my numbers right. So, and I think I must be somewhere close to where the show is as well.
I thought I had heard that the show, and I could be wrong because I don't follow either very closely, but I thought I had heard that that this season was going to bypass the books.
I don't know if it's
that the series is going.
I think it might be where they're filming now. Like they're getting into. I think it's the stuff that they're the stuff that they're writing for the show. They've had to consult with him because it's the stuff that hasn't been published yet.
Right.
So that's where they're at. I don't think it's. I'm not sure because again, I avoid it for spoilery reasons. But although it's diverging enough too, because I've heard there is quite a bit of difference at this point. And whole characters that don't appear at all and that sort of thing. So maybe whole viewpoints. I'm not sure. But anyway, the world is still very cool and lots of neat stuff, sort of on the macro levels happening. And I like sort of the political angles to this kind of thing, which is part of why I like it. So I don't mind that. But I could see how other people might have found it a letdown after book 3. And that's pretty much my week in reading.
Okay. How about you, Michael?
Yeah, pretty slow week for me again. I read How to Make a Living as a Writer by Joanna Penn, so I'm still in the middle of that. Pretty good. It's pretty basic Joanna 101 stuff that if you follow her, you're probably very familiar already with the stuff she writes about. So thinking about your books as multiple streams of income, how to think about your business as a writer, or think about your writing business as a business, entrepreneurship, all that stuff. So I always read every book she writes. So I just didn't get around to reading this one until lately. I think it's been out for a few months already. And then just catching up on Dean Wesley Smith's blog. I haven't been reading his blog lately, so he does a weekly writing in public post, or a daily, where he posts kind of what's on his mind, and then he talks about a topic of the night. So I haven't really read that many of those since he finished his last series. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Heinlein's Rules. That's supposed to be coming out anytime now.
Teasing it.
Yeah, he keeps teasing it. I don't know when he's going to do it, but
he said this month in his most recent one. So.
Yeah, he said he finished an 11-day novel or something crazy like that. So it'll probably be next. But yeah, that's pretty much all the reading I got done this week. I've been doing a lot of stuff around the house, so been reading manuals and a bunch of crap that would put you to sleep. So putting stuff together and all that stuff. I guess that counts as reading, right? That's kind of a cop-out, but that's pretty much my week.
It's like counting Facebook posts as writing.
Or reading.
Yeah, exactly.
Or reading, yeah.
I read 1,000 posts today, so therefore compile that into a book now.
That's your week,
How
then?
about you, Ben? Yeah, that's it for me. Real short.
I read a book that I've had sitting on my Kindle for quite some time, and I finally got around to checking it out. And it's called Mort. It's by Joseph Duncan. It is a zombie apocalypse book, and so it follows the usual sort of tropes there. Follows two characters, Mort and Pete, through their sort of adventures through the zombie apocalypse. I found it very well written, which was the thing that kind of dragged me into it. I really enjoyed just the style and the telling of the story. And so in thinking about the book, I would say it's dirty and disgusting, were the two words, and then vile and violent. Even if you're a fan of zombie apocalypse type stuff, you might not like this book. He takes it. He doesn't hold anything back. There's stuff that even as a fan of horror and the zombie stuff that might kind of throw you off. And I think in some of the reviews that I was looking at afterwards that there were certain parts of the book that caused people to put it down, because he's got there's a if you don't want spoilers, maybe just skip ahead 30 seconds here if you're listening on the audio feed. But there is a pimp in the story who, because all of the human hookers are dead, has decided to use zombie hookers as a replacement. And so if that sounds like your thing...
That just might cross some people's lines.
Yeah, there are these other groups of beings in the story, archons. They're like angelic creatures that are kind of flying around and saving people, and that happens like in the prologue, so that's not a spoiler. But there is a twist in here, and I'm saying this because of was a lead into our topic. There is a twist in this book that you will see coming a mile away, but it still works. So I would, if you're a fan of the zombie apocalypse and you don't get grossed out easily, kind of like I'd say maybe if you read Hugh Howey's iZombie, and didn't find some of that stuff disgusting, then you might enjoy this one. It really is very well written. I like the characters; they're really fleshed out well. I enjoyed it. It was, I think, kind of the right book for me at the right time. It was a quick, fun, easy read, and I just kind of blasted through it. It was fun, disgusting and fun, which is just what you want sometimes, I guess.
So again, that's not Terry Pratchett's Mort in the Discworld series of death.
No.
Very, very different.
Yes, very much so. Although there are some funny moments in this book, but not Terry Pratchett funny. So we'll move into our topic and talk about useful reviews. And do one of you guys want to lead off? Do you have some initial thoughts?
Sure. I guess it's funny, like, because there's so many people spending so much energy writing reviews, or not, right? Some people just sort of drive by, don't put much thought into it. But there are a lot of people, especially on Goodreads, that, or the other sort of social media sites that related to reading, that spend so much time. And some of the people with their graphics, and some of the people with just long things, or the ones that are sort of the book report or like review column style, where it's a whole recap of the book and then a whole bunch about it and that sort of thing. So you see all that, and so much of it I find not useful as a reader. The things that I really want to know about, I guess there's one of the ways that, and we can talk about some different sort of types of things that are useful, but one that I really do find useful that some people get mocked or they complain about when you market it that way, but if people say this would appeal to the readers of this book, for books that I really liked, and maybe multiple books that I really liked, I find that really useful in a review, and I would like to see more of that, especially at the very top of it, because then there'd be more reviews that I could read.
You're seeing people comment that they don't like that?
No, well, people don't like that to be in like the book descriptions, or some people find that sort of cheap marketing sort of, ways to do it in your book description, saying, it's this meets this and that sort of thing, and people, get tired of that sort of pitch.
I think that's a great shorthand.
I think it can be, but I think when it comes from a genuine reader, it's a great, useful thing for another reader to see. Whereas if it's coming from the author or the publisher, you don't know how much to trust it, right? And then again, how much can you trust random Amazon reviewer, right? You don't know, but at least if the rest of it seems okay.
I think you just have to be careful with it. Like we watched Z2134 run into some trouble where they marketed that book as The Walking Dead meets The Hunger Games. And even when I was reading it, the problem I had with it was, yes, there are elements of The Hunger Games here, but the only thing it has in common with The Walking Dead is that there are zombies in both stories. That's it. There is no, right, it would be like saying this is like Lord of the Rings just because it has a dragon in it.
Yeah. It's more, you'd rather they say, this is like The Hunger Games with zombies.
With zombies. Right.
No problem, right? Like that's an accurate portrayal of it. So and again, that's the kind of thing that a reader would say about it, which again is what we're trying to focus on there, and I think is a useful thing to see, because that's the best shorthand for you might like this, is if someone can appeal to something that you do already like. So
well, and to that point too, one of the things that jumped out at me is about something you already like is sort of the editorial reviews. And that's I've come to really kind of distrust those for a couple reasons. One, I have seen glowing editorial reviews from authors that I like and trust for a book that I absolutely despised, which makes me question, did they really like this book? I can't see how they could have possibly enjoyed this book. Why are they saying it's the greatest thing ever written? And, different tastes, whatever. But it does make me question that did they get paid for this editorial review? And the other problem I have with those is, I was poking around looking at some YA books, and I came across a book called Six of Crows. I think because I was looking at, I think this book comes out, it's coming out today, it looks like. But I was looking through the editorial reviews, and I'm like, oh, there's a whole ton of them, and they're all saying this is amazing, mesmerizing, triumphant. This is one book, this is one series you will get hooked on. And then I noticed that every single one of the editorial reviews has in brackets at the end of the review the name of a different book. so these reviews are for other books by the author and not
Okay.
necessarily even in the same series. So it's like, this is the best book you'll ever read, and then in brackets the name of a different book that they wrote. So they may not have even read this new book. It could be a piece of
Right.
garbage. And I so I don't.
And
So
that's
right
where,
there,
that's where they're just copying and pasting that same sort of stuff that you see in the front pages of the print
Yep.
book, right? And there, it says, this is what people are saying about Joe's book last year. And you're fine with that because that makes sense in that context. But when it's there in the review section, the way that we, the way that we use this now,
well, especially when they put
that's misleading.
30 of them.
Yep.
Like there is like a scrolling page of these editorial reviews, before you even get to the real reviews.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a distinction. I think you have to draw a distinction between the author using that kind of language and a reviewer using that kind of language, right? Because if a reviewer says Z2134 or is like Walking Dead meets The Hunger Games, then that lends some credibility to it, right? But if the author says it, then that gives the reader the opportunity to say, no, this is not what it's like, right? So I don't know. I guess I take that kind of language. I tend to take that more seriously when it's from a reader rather than an author. That's
I also think from an author, you may want to make it clear, or they should make it clear, as to whether you're talking about content or tone. Right, because if you're going to say this would appeal to fans of The Walking Dead, but it's a comedy with zombies, probably not a good idea. So you want to, fans of lighthearted, romantic zombie comedies like Zombieland would enjoy that. Like, you want to be specific. You're talking about, the world that the story is set in. There's zombies, or there's, dragons or whatever, or are you talking about the tone and whether it's lighthearted or gory? It's gory like Stephen King, or it's whatever. Don't just throw out a title.
And that's the thing. I think that feel, to whatever extent the reviewer can give that feel of what the book is like, is such an important thing and such a useful thing in the review if they can get to it. Unfortunately, when they bury it under 5 pages of plot stuff in the review, that's what I find so frustrating, and why I end up avoiding reviews so much, and just sort of waiting for word of mouth recommendations, or just seeing a link from something else, some other way to discover it. It's too bad to me that whole, so much of the review industry is going in that direction that I don't think I want to be. It doesn't help me anyway as a reader.
yeah.
I stay far away from reviews or blurbs even on any book that's not first in a series, because I've been burned way too many times where you'll be reading either the back blurb or somebody's review, and while they don't spoil that book, they'll say, now that
Now that King Henry is dead.
Ron Weasley, having died in the first book,
Exactly.
now the characters in the second book are continuing. You're like, okay, I haven't even read the first book yet, and you're spoiling.
That's important.
And you see that both in blurbs constantly. And the only thing you pretty much can't spoil in a second book is that somebody from the first book made it through for there to be a sequel, and probably the main character, right? Don't talk about other characters or other events. Having won the war, having now we continue the second book. So I stay far away from reading back cover blurbs or reviews for anything, book 2, book 3, book 4, whatever. Unless I've already read book 1, right?
Right. Or if you're willing to have the experience spoiled for you. Like sometimes I guess
I don't like spoilers.
I don't mind them that much. I guess for me, if I finish a first book and I'm it's not the greatest book I've ever read, maybe I might buy the next one. Maybe I will page through the reviews of the second book to see what people are saying. I mean, that's yeah.
Well, I was going to say
that's a different story.
The other thing that they really need to not put. I think, and it may have it may have been the Six of Crows book that I was looking at, but it could have been something else. Let me take a real quick look here. Is in the description of the book. Yeah, I'm not gonna keep. Yeah, so this is a review on this new book that's coming out. One of the things it says is that it has a nerve-wracking cliffhanger. Okay, well, I'm out because that tells me that the book doesn't get resolved, and you have to wait for book 2 and maybe book 3. Because again, I don't want to know that. Well, maybe I do want to know that it has a cliffhanger because then I know now that I don't want to read it.
Mm-hmm. And that, again, that can be useful signaling for them to get good reviews and not have unhappy customers. But it will drive people away. So if you're comfortable with selecting it out that way, great. That could be a good thing for you. But the author may be pissed off because if they didn't have control over that, they may not like that angle to it.
Yeah, because it may not be clear, right? They may have been better off saying, assuming it's more accurate, to say this is a self-contained story that will be a series, with cliffhanger-ish elements. I don't know.
You see that a lot in romance. Like you'll see like a romance or erotica, and they'll say at the very end, there'll be like a bunch of asterisks, and it'll say, "This story ends on a cliffhanger. Please note, blah blah blah." I just think that's interesting. Like I see that a lot with romance novels, but I don't see it that often with science fiction and fantasy. I don't know. I guess I'm in the minority. I don't mind cliffhangers. I don't mind them. I don't mind them in chapters, and I also don't mind them in the endings because if it's a really good book that I want to read, then yeah, sure.
Well, that's where I think the useful one with that is when they can say, "This was a great self-contained story, but man, I'm excited because but there's the stuff at the end leaves me so excited for book 2." If they can position it that way, that's the best of both worlds, right?
Let me add a caveat to what I just said though, because there is a way to do it the wrong way, right? Which is I'm just going to write a book and then end it on a cliffhanger so that people will buy the next book. Not I'm going to write a book.
And the worst example I've seen of that is that we're cutting into each other because the sound's off.
Yeah, sorry. It's probably me.
I was just gonna say the worst example I've seen of that is that the Knife of Never Letting Go, which I think you've read, and I think you finished the series. I didn't.
I doesn't sound familiar. I don't think I read it.
Oh, I thought you had read that.
No, it sounds familiar, but I don't think so. No, I haven't read it, but yeah, it's annoying because you can tell when authors just kind of do it on purpose. But I think if you have a really good story and it's legitimately the best story that you can tell, why not end it on a cliffhanger to get people to buy the next one? I don't know. I guess.
So I would be okay with that if A, it was a really good book and the second book was available, and B, the first book wasn't 99 cents and the second book is $9.99. And C, if the first book is out and it's going to take 3 years before the second book gets released because it's traditionally published. Mm-hmm. So if the book is available immediately and it's not a jacked up price, which would feel like they did that on purpose to kind of get you hooked, which I guess everybody does in a sense, even without cliffhangers, get you hooked on the 99-cent book and lead you into the rest of the series. But it just feels cheap.
Yeah, there's definitely a way to do it without. There's definitely a way to do it while making your brand feel expensive than just trying to pump people out of their money.
I guess we should get back to the review part of it too.
Yeah, that's
one of the one of the things I can't stand in good reviews is, and I think Jamie kind of touched on this already, is that I'm going to tell you the entire plot of the book before I get to how I felt about it. And I've looked at book reviews for a book, and you look at the top, and here's the book, and here's the synopsis, and then you look at the first review, and they give you a synopsis of the story, and the next review they tell you what the story's about. Like, okay, we know what the book is about. Either we've read it, or we've at the very least read this. Read the synopsis from the publisher. We don't need to know that this is the story of Harry Potter who lives under the stairs, and just tell us what you thought of the book.
And I think, go ahead, Michael.
No, I was gonna say I think it's interesting because if you think about product reviews and you think about any other kind of product review, right? That's not written. Like think about like the YouTube unboxing videos, right? Mm-hmm. It's the most brainless thing ever. It's just a guy or a girl getting a product, opening it up, showing you what it looks like on the inside, and then hooking it up, right? I don't know. I just feel like people want, in a way, they kind of want that. Even though it's not something that I like in a review, it seems like that's, I don't know, it seems like that's part of the review process, to at least summarize the product and then get into how to use it or what you liked about it or what you didn't, even though a lot of reviewers tend to go overboard with it.
In this case, I think it's kind of the opposite. It's nothing to do with what anybody that would be consuming this review wants, and it's all to do with what they think they need to do and want to do, and not showing off kind of thing, but sometimes it's because they're going to cross-post that to their blog, and so it does make a bit more sense. Like that context, I'm okay with it. I'm not going to go read it there, but at least it makes sense to their viewers of that type of thing. And then the other one is just sort of, I want to make it look like I have this one that's showing up in a newspaper book review section where they might do more of that. In certain styles, not all of them would.
You could be right, and absolutely, I think there's a difference if you're putting it on the blog. Again, context is important. Right. But yeah, I mean, you never know too. Like this person could be trying to get a job writing for a website that writes reviews, and they want these things to look as, here's what I would write if I was writing for you. Check out some of my reviews. We don't know, but when you're poring over reviews, trying to decide whether to read a book or not, it starts to get old.
Yeah, totally.
Let me see. Oh, one of the things I absolutely hate in good reviews is, and this is why I mentioned it when I was talking about Mort, is there's a twist. I do not want to know that there's a twist coming, because then you start looking for it, right? Or they'll say, I knew the twist on page 2, and then if you're on page 2 and you're like, well, I don't see any twist come, then am I an idiot? I don't see the twist. I didn't see the twist till the last page. It's a twist for a reason. You kind of want it to be a surprise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even the existence of something like that.
Right. I have that problem with nonfiction books, actually, where you'll read a nonfiction review, but then they won't tell you what it's about. They'll just tell you how they made them feel. So, like, when I read a nonfiction review, I want to know, number one, what did you learn? Number two, would you recommend it? And number three, what are some of the key takeaways that you wish that, I don't know, that you didn't know when you first picked up the book? And that's really more for how-to books, but I don't know, that the context of that is pretty important too.
Yeah, I could see that, and I think in the nonfiction books too, you kind of want to know, like you were mentioning with the Joanna Penn book, is this 101? Like if you've read 10 blog posts about this topic, do you already know everything that's contained in this book, or is this sort of intermediate, or did this book blow my mind because they've taken this topic in a completely different direction, or that would be really good to know. Because honestly, we've talked about this, I think briefly offline too, is that I think 9 out of 10, if not more, nonfiction self-help how-to books are very basic 101 stuff. So it'd be good to know that you're not just going to be reading the same thing that you already have.
Right. I mean, that comes into the idea that a review can save you some money. I mean,
sure.
That's what I look for in a nonfiction book is, am I going to waste my money on this? Or is it going to have value?
And there's a different kind of value that can come out with that. And I'll talk, to sort of some of the James Altucher type situations where some of the stuff that he's released now, his are complicated because some of them he released for free anyway. But where people are doing compilations of blog posts and that sort of thing, if they're curating them in such a way that it's a really efficient, good way to consume their best content, and that's a good thing. Like if someone can mention that in the review and pitch it to me that way, that works. Like because that can make a lot of sense as opposed to going and following a bunch of links and trying to go through the whole blog, depending on how people like to read things. And I know there are some books that I've read that way that were well done versions of that sort of a thing. But then there's other ones that are just the cobbled together mishmash type ones of exactly the same thing where there's no curation. It's like, there was no filters. Everything just dumped from the blog, with crappy formatting into a book. So, and people will let them know that in the review too, right? So.
Do you like, since like with nonfiction, because you wouldn't see it with fiction, do you like reviews where they sort of copy paste the table of contents? I
Um,
do. I think it's helpful if because that's something that you probably wouldn't see unless you downloaded a sample of the book. I think that is something that's helpful on a nonfiction book for them to lay out. Here's the things that you're going to learn.
Well, that should be in the product description then, right? As bullet points,
yeah,
and that makes
I
all the
think
sense in the world.
that's a case of the author not doing their job
Yeah.
at that point. If you have a nonfiction how-to, I mean, I don't know. It's a commonly accepted practice that you should have at least a summary or quick highlights of what the table of contents is. But yeah, I can see how that would be useful, especially if you've got an author that's got a table of contents in the back of the book, right? So you have no idea of knowing what's there without actually getting it.
Right.
That drives me up the wall.
Yeah, I think the last kind of note I think I had was for just sort of what I look for in a good review, and what do I want to know about specifically sort of a fiction book. I'd like to know the pace. Is this story going to be a slow burn, or is it fast action? I'd like to know sort of the number of lead characters or points of view. That's a quick to say like there are 800 characters in this book, and you might have a hard time keeping up, or this follows one person's journey, or it's a little motley crew of 4 people, whatever. Easy to easy to follow storyline, or is it does it get political and there's religious stuff going on, and is that convoluted? And frankly, I'd also I like the ones where they will have a quick note on just the language and the editing, just nice easy read, or is it literary, just that kind of stuff. Just what kind of book am I reading?
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that, and I think too, I have to give a shout out to Audible, right? If you guys have ever read or written a product review for Audible, they do a really good job of that. I mean, their prompts basically tell you what to say when you're reviewing the book, like how is the narration, and then they give you a couple of different blocks, and it'll ask you how you would describe it. Was it good, bad, poor, so on and so forth, and you can pick your questions, and they're randomly generated every time. So if I review your audiobook, Patrick, I'll get 3 different questions than if Jamie reviewed it. So I feel like you get a lot of really good, interesting angles on reviews, and I think that a lot of people, at least me, when I'm reviewing a book, I feel like I need to be guided what to say because I'll forget something, or I'll either vomit it all out. Something to be said for that too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Amazon just started doing that too. They've got a new review system where you can pick adjectives that best describe an author's writing style or the mood of the book, or I don't know. I think that's the future. I think we're going to see more of that.
It's funny that came through the Amazon side too, when they have Goodreads, and there's nothing like that on Goodreads yet, right? But that was interesting. I was going to say another for that epic fantasy side of things. I think one thing that's useful in there can be how worth this, how quickly the story gets through because there's going to be the world building, and some will feel slower through the beginning, but it's totally worth it to get through that, and especially if it was the author's first book written a while ago, that sort of thing. I think that can be a useful thing where the person's cheering you on through that and saying, that for whatever the description is, the first 100 pages isn't my favorite part of the book, but it's necessary, and man, once you get past that, I love it. Kind of that can be a really useful review for that kind of for especially those kind of epic scale, really long books, or really long book in a really long series, like some of them.
Or I was enjoying the book through the first 2/3, and then I just wished it would end.
Yeah, I always thought it'd be really cool to have a way to review the book as you're reading it. So I don't know, the author says, "Hey, there's a twist at the end of chapter 7, right?" And then once you finish chapter 7 and you've just read that cliffhanger, a little pop-up comes up and says, "What did you think of that?" And then you hit the adjective you like, and then that can get shared with people. So you can kind of see what people think of the book as they go through it, instead of what they thought of it when they finished it.
Choose the emoticon that currently describes your face now, right?
Or they should, with technology these days, stuff like that's just gonna get better and better. I mean, you can
Yeah.
see if you're reading on your Kindle Fire, the author can set it up so that after you read a particular sentence, it takes a picture of your face and posts it to Twitter,
Yeah.
or the
Cool.
tweet this links, that you've seen on, you see people using them a lot on blog posts and stuff like that, where
Yeah.
the author of the post thinks they have said something witty and puts it in quotes, and there's a little button there, where you can click it and tweet their quote or whatever. We're going to start to see stuff like that in books. Tweet this, like, oh my God, I just got to this part in the book or whatever.
Yeah. It's coming. It's not that far away.
Someone must be doing that on Instagram already, right? Like just their own little selfies of their book reactions.
Book selfies. Yeah. We can do like a really, really slow and boring series of like teenagers reacting videos to, teenagers react while reading Harry Potter, You sit and watch this for 8 hours and see us.
Yeah. Funny.
So, I know Michael's got a hard stop tonight, so we'll start to wrap this up. Any sort of final thoughts on what you guys look for in positive reviews? I think we covered a lot of stuff there. We're good? Silence from Walter.
No, I'm good. I was just thinking through it, but yeah, it's really
Sorry, I've got a blender going on in the background.
Yeah. Don't. I just say tell me I was saying tell me how it feels. Especially if there's not just the sort of it's this plus this, but especially if they could say the world building reminds me of this, or that the detail of the magic system reminds me of this, or the characters are as gripping as the ones from this. Like those kinds of more specific, but still generic things like that are to give you that feel of what the book is like. I love that
shorthand. I think
That's
shorthand
great.
like that is good, especially because I think more than most things in reviews, that I think is something that generates discussion, because somebody else will weigh in and say, yeah, I didn't get Walking Dead from that, or and then you'll even get a better sense of, because not everybody is going to feel the same thing when reading it, and I have seen reviews where somebody's saying it felt like, it reminded me of something. Other people will jump in and say, no, not at all, it's something else.
But are you going to read that rebuttal before you pick up the book? I'm not. Like if I see the back, the comments to the comments, I'm scared of spoilers and stuff, to even delve into those areas. So it's just not going to happen to me.
Okay. So we will wrap up there, and next week we're going to have author David Bruns joining us. He wrote Weapons of Mass Deception, and not sure about a topic just yet, but should be a good one. And thanks for watching. We will talk to you in a week. Have a good one, guys.
Everybody.
Go Jays.